think I'm good now. Edit privacy. I guess it's gonna ask me that every week. Hello, everyone. Hope you are well. Happy Tuesday, Thursday. Happy Thursday to you. Let's see. Hold on. As you're coming in, please let me know if you can hear me well. If I'm too loud, last week I felt like the volume was low when I looked at the playback. So y'all let me know what it's looking like for you. It is 7 p.m. on the dot and welcome. I am Dr. Dannetta, the host of the Creative Scholar Book Club. And for the month of February, we are reading All About Love by Bell Hooks. And it's been a great read so far. We've been chatting in the chat, talking a little bit about some of the things that resonate with us. And this week, I'm looking forward to the discussion. We stopped short of starting with chapter 3 last week discussion. So we'll be discussing chapters 3, 4, and 5 this week. If we spend about 20 minutes or so on each chapter, we should be good. And I feel like we'll have more comments maybe for certain chapters than others. But that might just be because certain chapters, really resonated with me. And I had so many quotes highlighted that I thought were very significant, and I know that I can't share them all. So hopefully you all will share some of the quotes that I highlighted that I didn't get the chance to share. If you are joining me via Facebook or YouTube, I'd love for you to drop down in the comments, just say hello so that I know it is you, that you are here, and that you're tuned in with us for this next little while. Hopefully you can stay with us the whole hour. If not, completely fine. No worries at all. I will leave the lives up so that you can come back and catch the rest of it if you would like to. Or if you don't get a chance to leave your favorite quotes or comments, the lives will continue to be up for you to do so. So this week we read about some pretty heavy topics relative to love. The first chapter is on honesty, and the title of it is Honesty Be True to Love. This is chapter 3, and we'll spend maybe about 20 minutes or so discussing this chapter. So I'm gonna give y'all a minute or so to continue to come in. Do me a favor when you see this, just hit share. Share it to your timeline for your friends or family members who may be interested in hearing what we have to say in this community about our experience with reading this book, All About Love. Even if you've not read it, or maybe you read it before, it's not a new book. A lot of you may have read this book long ago and far away, or maybe you read it recently and you're not reading it with us. Still want your feedback. We're talking through some of the best quotes that we found as we were reading, but we're also just talking through some of the topics. And honesty is a pretty major topic this week, so would love to have y'all share with us in the chat, even if you have not read with us so far. All right, I'm just checking to make sure I can see everyone in Facebook. I can, and so let me see. Let me make sure we're good over in YouTube, and we'll go from there. Yeah, looks like we're up. I see we're up on the Creative Scholar page. Let me just check real quick, make sure we are rolling on my main page. And we are. So, for the people who are in YouTube, I'd love to see you drop your name and let me know who you are. In YouTube, of course, I can see the numbers, but I cannot see who you are. So, I'd love for you to just say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from in the comments over on YouTube, and I will check those out and shout you out here while we are on live. All right, hello. Over in YouTube, we have Sarah Rivers over in YouTube that has left her name there. So I'd love to see others who are live over in YouTube. Go ahead and drop your name in the comments over on YouTube so she will know who you are. So she'll know that she's not alone in this discussion over on YouTube. All right, on Facebook, let me check back in with y'all, and then we're going to jump right in and we're going to get started with our discussion tonight. We're at 7:06, and I want to make sure we stay on time. All right, so I can see you here over in Facebook. So as you all comment, I'll make sure I'll acknowledge your comments. So chapter 3, honesty, be true to love. If you have the paper copy, we it starts on page 31. Let me know who you are in Facebook. Would love to have you chat with us. Drop a few quotes. Let me know. So for chapter 1, we'll follow our regular routine. Make sure you drop for me in the comments either your one sentence summary or a quote that stood out to you the most that represents what you drew from chapter 3. So I give y'all a second to leave those. And while you're typing those, if you can, if you have your book with you, put the page number so the rest of us can go back and make reference to some of the quotes that you that resonated with you. We want to go back and check those out too. All right, so in this chapter, she talked about the importance of honesty when it comes to the concept of love, and we kind of touched on it a little bit last week. And when it comes to things that started to form in childhood. And she says the same with honesty and love. She says, since pretense is such an expected aspect of childhood play, it is a perfect context for mastering The Art of Dissimulation. I'll read it again. I kind of stumbled over it. Since pretense is such an expected aspect of childhood play, it is a perfect context for mastering the art of dissimulation. So, one of the things I thought about when I was reading through this chapter and reading through this quote is in raising children or in leading or guiding children, even protecting children, teaching them the way that they should go. One of the things I thought about that I've learned better over the years, and I believe a lot of us have, is paying attention to a child's honest reaction to something or someone, and not trying to force, I guess, a socially acceptable honest reaction from a child to someone. And the example I thought about is like, for example, in times past, when your children are maybe at a family gathering with family members that they don't know well, or even like just a public place meeting people that you know, and maybe a person reaches to hug the child or touches the child's hair or something like that, and the child recoils. In past times, one of the things that I've seen people do, or maybe people have done more, is, scold the child and say, like, oh, don't be rude, give so and so a hug, or don't be, that's not nice. Like, when they were actually giving their honest reaction. And even though, we may say or do those things, just to be courteous to whoever the other party is that is trying to embrace or speak to the child, we don't think about the fact that at the time we're teaching that child to basically lie to themselves about their first reaction or how they feel about something or someone. So, of course, I'm not saying, nor do I believe she says anywhere in here not to teach, a child etiquette or not to teach a child um, how to be polite and cordial, even if they are not, they don't feel comfortable hugging or shaking a hand or whatever. So, we're not saying don't do that, but just from reading this, that was the first example that came to me of how we don't realize that even in teaching children just social graces, sometimes we may teach them in a way that's actually teaching them to lie, teaching them to ignore their natural response to someone, or to ignore their needs, or to almost numb their nervous system. So I thought about that when it comes to honesty, and then how in adulthood, in many different situations, we some maybe more than others, may have learned to ignore what we sense or what we feel about people in situations, or not give ourselves a chance to process and make a decision, because we don't want to be rude, or we don't want to um, you know, seem out of place or be different. So that really stuck out to me when it came to the honesty aspect of being honest when it comes to how we interact with people. Teaching children from a young age pretty much to lie in order to impress our friends. I remember when we were reading the Lisa Romano book a couple of months back, she talked about that being a form of a way of being that is connected to codependency and people pleasing. She talked about how she found like I guess a safe space as a child with certain children in her neighborhood, but when a certain family would come, to the neighborhood, she felt, like her family didn't pay attention to what her needs were, because she had to make nice with children who were mean or rude to her, as opposed to being able to naturally spend more time with people who she felt good around, people who treated her with regard and with respect. So that's a thought that sticks out to me. And you guys can drop your comments in Facebook. I'm going to go over to YouTube and see if there are any there. Any comments in YouTube? If you guys want to drop your comments or your quotes in YouTube, I'll make sure that I come back through to check in with y'all there. Let me know what are some quotes for you. That was one of the main ones for me in chapter 3. So I'll continue and I'll check again in a few minutes for comments on Facebook. Um, Something else that she brought out in this chapter was patriarchy. In this chapter, she talked about how our society, at the time that the book was written, which was in the early 90s, and like we said last week, still very true to today, um, our culture as a whole, even really, we can think about other cultures as well, but just because we are going to be more fluent in the culture that we spent the most time in, I speak mainly about the culture here in the country in which I dwell, which is the United States. How lying is very much is not frowned upon in relationships the way it should be. She talked about, the romantic relationship, the male female relationship, and some of the quotes that she said in this chapter were really really profound. Um, on page 36, she said, "The men I have loved have always lied to avoid confrontation or take responsibility for inappropriate behavior." Um, I'll read that quote again. She said, "The men I have loved have always lied to avoid confrontation or take responsibility for inappropriate behavior." And when she says the men that she has loved, she wasn't only talking about in romantic relationships. She was even talking about in her upbringing, how sometimes the truth was withheld from her, even if it was for a good cause, even if it was to spare her feelings or her emotions. The truth was withheld from her, and she learned that that was acceptable as a child. So she took that into her romantic relationships. Um, Another quote that she said that I thought was profound as well on page 37, she said, "Many men confess that they lie because they can get away with it. Their lies are forgiven." And she talks about men and women lying, so we're going to get to the women. But she talks about how in our culture, it is almost even amongst people who um, are believers in the Christian faith, where clearly our ethics, clearly our code of honor, our book of instructions, you know, promotes us, being honest, telling the truth, being faithful. But even within that culture, we know that it's really not lying is almost to be expected. It's almost condoned, especially when it's coming from men. I've heard some of, you know, I guess thought leaders and relationship coaches that I, respect and have heard some really good advice from, pretty much minimize and say that, most men are, lying to 3 or 4 women at a time until they decide who they're going to be with. So this is thought leaders that are Christians, even preachers, they brush it off, not just to say that it's happening, but to say that it's not necessarily a big deal. So she was saying this in 1990, still pervasive today, um, in 2025. So those stuck out to me because while I'm reading this book, it's just still, even though I know, we're reading about love, which is a human nature thing, it's a spiritual thing, it's still like shocking to me almost how accurate her words still are, even today. And she went on to talk about basically I guess, giving an explanation for how society teaches, damages, and trains men in a lot of situations to lie, especially in the relationship context. On page 39, she says, estrangement from feelings makes it easier for men to lie because they are often in a trance state, utilizing survival strategies of asserting manhood that they learned as boys. This inability to connect with others carries with it an inability to assume responsibility for causing pain. I'm going to read that second part again. Um, this inability to connect with others carries with it an inability to assume responsibility for causing pain. And it made me think about the scenario where, like I said, even the OGs, the ones who are teaching and training young men now. Not all of them. Many have come through, you know, being able to sort through, being estranged from their emotions so that, they can live within them in a way that is where honesty is feasible. But a lot of the OGs even still, teach the form of manhood where it's kind of by any means necessary. Is all about pretty much what you can gain, what you can acquire to show that you're a man. And if that means lying to several people is a part of that, then do what you got to do. Like, cut yourself off from the emotional aspect that will allow you to connect with being responsible for causing pain. And so I like that she talks about it in such an in-depth way that it doesn't minimize the struggle, um, that, being reared in a particular way pretty much you pretty much it grooms men to be dishonest when it comes to how they feel. She even talked about it in a way where it's not them so much lying to get their way, in a I don't want to say in a negative way, lying to get their way to deceive people, but even lying to spare the feelings of maybe a daughter, or spare the feelings of a female partner, or spare the feelings of someone that's under their leadership, or someone who they have the power to give the truth to. um I like that she talked about it in such an in-depth way that it's not like she's not man hating, she's not disparaging men. She's telling the truth of what she has experienced, what her research has shown, and even conversations that she's had, over time with men who have had a chance to work through that. And I'll just add a little note here. The next book, or one of the next two books that I have planned for us to read, is going to actually address some of this stuff a little bit more in depth with that as a focus. But we'll get to that. I won't give that away just yet. Let me pause for a moment. I have over in YouTube a couple more folks who have joined us. Do me a favor and drop down in the chat. Just say hello so we know that you are here. And let me check back over on Facebook real quick. Let's see. Over in Facebook. Hi there. I'd love for y'all to leave your quotes real quick that you found for chapter 3 before we move on. It's 7:22, so in about 2 or 3 minutes, we'll slide on through to the next chapter so we can get through all three of these. I love the quote you just gave. There's responsibility that comes with influence. That's good. That's really good. Also, let me know. Well, here's what I'm going to do. For everyone that is watching via a mobile device and I can bring you in, I'm going to hit bring them on video. You don't have to accept it, but I am going to put it so that if you want to come in, you can. All right? And let's see how that works. Um, Basically, I'm just sending a request. If you answer the request, you'll pop up here and we'll get your feedback live. If not, I will continue to look in the chat, which is fine as well. I'd love for y'all to leave your favorite quote or two, or maybe just your summary in the chat. Okay, it's easier typing. We'll go with that. All right, is that your quote that you left there that says there's responsibility that comes with influence? Is that your summary, or is that a quote that you found? Let us know in the chat. If it is a quote, let us know the page number. We'll flip over to it. If it is just your summary, that's cool too. All right. While we're waiting for that feedback in the chat, she also talks about how here was the quote I wanted to share when I mentioned what she said about patriarchy. That was your summary. Okay, I got you. Let me put you right here so I can see it. All right. So she said in chapter 40, patriarchal masculinity requires of boys and men not only that they see themselves as more powerful and superior to women, but that they do whatever it takes to maintain their controlling position. This is one of the reasons men, more so than women, use lying as a means of gaining power in relationships. A commonly accepted assumption in a patriarchal culture is that love can be present in a situation where one group or individual dominates another. All right, and she mentioned maybe it was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was chapter 1 where she was defining love, where we saw that she said that love and abuse cannot coexist. And so from there, she went on to talk about what is truly love, like beyond affection and warm feelings, um, all of the different things that come with what we might think or what we might define as love. Some of those things are a part of love, but not the complete definition. So I thought about that quote again when I read here when she talked about what's a commonly accepted assumption in a patriarchal culture. And then another quote that she said was on page 41. Um, okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's easier for you to come on live than. Oh, it's easier for you to come on live than type. Okay. All right. I sent you. Are you able to accept the Are you able to accept the let's see, bring them on video. Did I send it? I sent you a request. So let me know if you're able to come in. If you accept the request, it'll let you come in on video. So I sent the request. So it should, you should see somewhere on your screen where it says accept request. And if you click accept request, it will bring you on. Okay, you don't see it yet. All right, I'm really excited to see we have some men, some guys who have jumped in the line. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank y'all for joining our discussion tonight. We're reading through All About Love by Bell Hooks. I would love to hear your feedback in the comments. Let me know if you have anything you want to share, anything you want to say. All right. Let me know if you see where it invited you onto the video. If you do, once you hit accept, if you see it, you'll just appear and we'll know that you accepted it and we'll be able to see you talking. All right. In the meantime, so we can move on because we are well past the time for chapter 1. She goes on in the second part of the chapter to talk about ways in which, she started out with talking about children and then men, how, our culture encourages lying, um, even if it is on a subconscious level, just based upon the way, we have come through time, in the space that we're in now, in the country that we're in. in the circumstances that we're in. Um, I just love that she addresses, how it's not just spitting statistics or telling personal anecdotes of how you've been lied to, which is valuable because sometimes we don't acknowledge the things that have happened to us, which is not healthy either. Um, but I digress. She goes on to talk about how women are encouraged to lie in our culture. She said on page 43, many examples of the support females receive for lying concern the desire to mate and bear children. She says, when I longed to have a baby and my male partner at the time was not ready, I was stunned by the number of women who encouraged me to disregard his feelings, to go ahead without telling him. They felt it was fine to deny a child the right to be desired by both female and male biological parents. She said, it disturbed me that women I respected did not take the need for male parenting seriously or believe that it was as important for a man to want to parent as a woman. So that was one example she gave where women are encouraged to lie. Now, again, this was written in the early 90s. I mean, not the early 90s. What am I saying? I'm messing this all up. This book was not written. Book was written in the early 2000s. It was published in the early 2000s, rather. So I I feel like because social media has puts every possible life scenario on blast for us all day, every day, that maybe enough stories, life stories have been told, um, enough mental health and women's health information is out there that maybe that's not as prominent or maybe that's not as prevalent in today's time. I don't know. That's me. I don't. But at the same time, I know that I have heard people I know have that fear. The men that I know have the very fear. Maybe not now at this big age, but possibly. Um, Basically that is unfortunately one of their only motivations to abstain or be careful with who they sleep with, afraid that someone's going to try to trap them with a child, which there's a whole lot up under and behind that as well that is still problematic. But just knowing that that concern is still out there says that that is something still very prevalent. Okay, technologically challenged this evening. No problem. We'll jump on and practice one day to make sure everybody knows how to jump on live. Let me know if anyone else wants to come on live. Um and I will bring you in. Okay. Let's move on then from chapter 1 with some of her best closing quotes. Not chapter 1, chapter 3. She said, "To be loving, we willingly hear each other's truth and, most important, we affirm the value of truth telling. Lies may make people feel better, but they do not help them to know love." She said, "To be loving, we willingly hear each other's truth. And most important, we affirm the value of truth telling. Lies may make people feel better, but they do not help them to know love." Um, she talked about the fact that on page 48, she said, then when men begin to share their thoughts and feelings, some women could not cope. They wanted the old lies and pretense to be back in place. And I've heard that said before to people. From people have said, y'all say y'all want to know the truth, but you can't handle the truth. But to that I say, um, as long as if where a lie should be replaced with the truth, as long as, as she says in that last quote, we can affirm the value of telling the truth, then we have to be able to affirm the value of whatever the response is when the truth is told, and know that even if it is not the response that we want, it is still infinitely more helpful and valuable to know the truth as it is to, live a lie, live within a charade. All right. All right. I'll try you again, with inviting you into the video. But in the meantime, we'll move on then. This is such a good chapter. And I think the good thing about discussing a book like this is that there's way too much to talk about in a book chat. So it should absolutely be read. It should absolutely be read beyond anything that any of us who are reading it could say about it and do it justice. Um, Moving on, chapter 4, commitment. Let love be love in me. Interestingly, um, the commitment chapter starts out basically as just continuing from the last chapter. A commitment to telling the truth is the first thing that she starts with when it comes to commitment. Um, on page 53, she says, when we can see ourselves as we truly are and accept ourselves, we build the necessary foundation for self love. So I thought it was very valuable that she started out with commitment first to the truth, then to seeing ourselves rightly. Um, Seeing ourselves, when we can see ourselves as we truly are and accept ourselves, we build the necessary foundation for love. So it connects so well to the last chapter because it's talking about the truth. When I was reading the honesty chapter, I thought to myself, just in becoming a person, and growing and walking through the things that God has allowed life to bring my way. When it comes to being honest, I believe that one of the ways where I have been able to like gauge or see or feel tangibly some growth within myself has been like being able to accept the truth even about myself, even when I didn't like it. Um, and when I'm It's interesting because I believe that just from my own experience, and I'm obviously from, counseling and psychology, studying that and serving people in that capacity, reading books like this, when we get to the place where we can be honest with ourselves about ourselves, um, that that is where the love of God and grace abounds. To me, it's one thing for me to be able to be merciful or have grace for someone else, or like the Lord convicts me very quickly when I'm being too judgmental, or maybe I'm being too harsh in my judgment about like what should or shouldn't have been done or whatever. I can be that because um, you know justice or fairness is important to me. So of course I don't always see things the way other people see them. So sometimes I can very quickly, in my, feeling like, oh, I'm committed to what is the right thing to do, you know, very quickly have a harsh judgment about what should have been done. But at the same time, like my conviction to have mercy on people is very high. Like, even if initially I'm like, no, 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 my conviction to have mercy on other people is very high. And sometimes, that plays out different ways. As I've gotten older, I understand that doesn't I can have mercy on people and myself, which is the point I'm trying to get to. I've learned that the more I can accept the truth about myself, flaws and all, the more I actually tangibly experience the grace of God, because I can accept those truths without hating myself or without being so hard on myself that I can't get past, I can't, grow in an area because The truth is just too much. Like I've even seen how connected that is to pride. Like pride just, you know, on steroids when there's a lack of self acceptance, or when there is a lack of being able to accept flaws and receive God's grace. Just as easily as I can, you know, think or feel that for other people, even if initially my response is, oh, this is what should have been done, kind of thing. So I thought about that, and I thought that was really important as I was reading through. I'm going to have a quote here for page 53. Whenever we learn how to love ourselves and others will depend on the presence of a loving environment. That's good. That's a good one. Very good one. Let's see, that was on page, you said 53. Yes. As we grow, we can give and receive attention, affection, and joy. Whether we learn how to love ourselves and others will depend on the presence of a loving environment. All right, good. Thank you for sharing that quote. Um, Let me check Facebook again real quick. Make sure I'm not leaving anybody out as far as the quotes go. Um, it was just way too many good things in this chapter. Way too many. On page 55, she says, and this is actually her quoting an author named Nathaniel Branden. To live consciously means to seek to be aware of everything that bears on our actions, purpose, values, and goals to the best of our ability, whatever that ability may be, and to behave in accordance with that which we see and know. I thought that one was really, really good. Basically, we hear a lot of, I don't want to, there's a lot of cliche ish kind of talk these days when it comes to being conscious. Everyone is conscious, but sometimes, you know, when it comes to really having a true commitment to the truth, we tend to be overly conscious sometimes of, I guess, trying to truth tell. I'm just telling the truth about other people and their situations and how we see it from the outside. But I love that she puts emphasis on living consciously is us seeking to be aware of what is influencing our own actions, what is influencing, our values and our goals. And if we determine that and we live in accordance with that the best we can, then, we're living with commitment. That's what it really means to live consciously. I like that she says to live consciously, we have to engage in critical reflection about the world we live in and know most intimately. And as we all grow and learn and change and mature and evolve, um, it it just seems to kind of naturally come together. Like the more we are observant and honest about what we see happening in our world, we can be just as observant and honest about what is happening within ourselves. It's very connected. Um, so yeah, I thought that was really, I guess, seamless, the way she went from the honesty into commitment when it comes to being honest about who we are and what is happening within. Um, I'll share a couple more quotes and then I'll move on for the last couple of minutes to our third chapter. Um, on page 57, she says, the more we accept ourselves, the better prepared we are to take responsibility in all areas of our lives. To take responsibility for my actions and the attainment of my goals, for my life and my well being. This is a pillar of self esteem. So, the other week, I got into a little bit of a conversation, kind of a back and forth. Well, it was kind of like, yeah, it was a little bit of a back and forth, not too much, over on Threads. And a young lady had made a quote. I don't remember exactly what she said in the quote, but basically, um, she was saying that low self esteem and low self worth were two things that she often, I guess, could pick up on in dating situations where it was a young man who needed to diminish her. Basically, that was. I'm heavily rewording what she said because I don't remember the exact quote, and it just came to mind. I would have pulled it up. Maybe I'll post it later. But what I noticed was some of the pushback that she got on her comment about low self esteem is I noticed, I guess, a confusion between low self esteem and low self worth. So, or maybe not even confusion between, but a lot of people think that self worth and self esteem are the same thing. And so anyway, I got into a conversation with that group of people over on Threads, a very brief interaction about low self esteem and low self worth not being the same thing, and how you can actually have a high perception of self worth and a low self esteem. Like certain things don't always stick out as an indication of low self esteem because we don't categorize them under self worth. Knowing that you're worthy, knowing that you have value, knowing that, um, you know, self worth can be a barrier to, I guess, stooping to a particular low in situations. But that self esteem is a something that I feel like in our culture there are a lot of huge misconceptions about. And I can speak for myself. For a very long time, I didn't really recognize the difference between low self esteem and low self worth. I mean, between self esteem and self worth in myself. And one of the one of the things that pointed out to me was working with clients on self esteem and being able to show them the differentiation between the two. So it's always a time where I end up going back to examine myself when I study something, more deeply, even to help someone else, and seeing that, like, okay, your self worth can be on 1,000, and your self esteem can be on like 10, 12, 8. Anyway, I took that long trail because she's already given me another book to read by quoting this Nathaniel Brandon, who talks about pillars of self esteem. And the third pillar of self esteem is taking responsibility for your actions to attain your goals for your life and well being. Which, I thought about that for, all of us. There is something about owning, our responsibilities, even in the midst of maybe things that have not been done or said towards us that were harmful. There comes a point where we can know and recognize where things have been done or not done towards us that have caused wounds, but there's a place where we start to take responsibility for, you know how can I move forward in my life to reach my goals, even if that's my mental health goals, even if that's my spiritual health goals, my financial health goals, my physical health goals. Like, of all of the things that have happened in my past, or even just our present society that could be damaging, where am I not taking, the responsibility to make the necessary changes? And, as we make those changes incrementally, it does increase our self esteem. So I'd love to hear in the chat if anyone has any other quotes, or if anyone has any examples that they want to give along the lines of any of the quotes that we have read through tonight. All right, it's 7:47. Let me see if I can share one more from here because there's like 20 more that I always say like these are the ones, but it's too many. Um, I'll close with because I thought this was a great example because stories always heal and connect. She gave an example of a woman who wanted to. It's on page. Does it start on 57? Yeah, I'll read it. And this goes with the what she was saying about self-esteem and being committed um, to attaining your goals. She said many women are married to men who were unsupportive when they decided to further their education. Most of these women did not leave the men in their lives. They engaged in constructive strategies of resistance. One woman I spoke with was inhibited because her husband worked in a plant and she felt uncomfortable having more education than he did. Yet she wanted to re enter the workforce and needed an advanced degree to do so. She made the choice to take responsibility for her needs and desires, believing it would also enhance the well being of her family. Returning to work boosted her self esteem and changed the passive aggressive rage and depression that had developed as a consequence of her isolation and stagnation. Making this decision and finding ways to realize it was not an easy process. However, her husband and children were often disgruntled when her independence forced them to accept more household responsibility. In the long run, everyone benefited, and it goes without saying that these changes boosted her self esteem in ways that showed her how self love made it possible to extend herself in a constructive way to others. She was happier, and so were those around her. Um, I love that she shared that story because it shows so many attributes or so many aspects of being committed in love, being willing to work through disagreements and challenges without giving up or lying to ourselves about the things that we desire to do that maybe we have a talent for, or maybe it can bring some ease and some improvement to our families or our communities. Sometimes the moves we have to make are not going to be easy at first for the people around us. Sometimes the moves we have to make um, are not conventional. They're not what everyone else is doing, but they can still be a blessing even to the people who may resist at the beginning. So I thought that was a really nice encouragement for anyone who wants to do anything. Um, whether it's within the context of a family, whether it is in the context of having innovative ideas of things you can do on your job, in your community. Nothing, great, no new innovation. Most times they're not received without some kind of resistance. But I love that she pointed out that, you know, this in this particular example, this person did not have to leave her family and go follow her dreams per se. She was able to work within her family context, and some changes had to be made temporarily to get to the point where everyone was better off. So I thought that was a really encouraging story that she shared in commitment in love. All right. If there be no more quotes, we'll move on to the last chapter for our last few minutes. The last chapter starts on page 69, and this is another important chapter: spirituality, divine love. Now, this is one of those ones where I know A lot of things popped out for me. So I'm definitely going to give you all a chance to drop your quotes, and um, I'll check back over through YouTube in a minute. It was really encouraging. Absolutely. I totally agree. All right, really loving the book. Okay, I'm glad you're loving the book. We're about halfway, well, about close to halfway through it. I believe there's 12 chapters, so we're a little bit less than halfway through it. Um, so really good book. Some of you are already done. Is there anyone in the chat that has completed reading the book already? Let me know in the chat if you're done already. Um, Let me check Facebook real quick, and then we'll move on from there. I mean, not Facebook, YouTube. All right, let's go into chapter 5, and we will close for the evening. Um, and I wanted to say too, I would love to see in the chat any pushback, because this is not about agreeing with everything the author says. It's about, encouragement, exposure to different perspectives, thinking through honestly, our own lives and the world around us. But we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree with each other on everything, and we don't have to agree with the author on everything. I believe pushback is valuable. It has its place. So I would love to see also any pushback. If you read anything that you felt like, I don't mind you sharing in the chat. In fact, I encourage you sharing that in the chat. All right, so spirituality as we close this evening. Um, I like how she made the connection between capitalism and living in a capitalistic society and a lack of spirit, a lack of belief in God, a lack of, or almost a numbing or a substitution for God's work and what is really most important in our lives through consumerism. I thought that was really important. So, also when I was reading this, for all of my Creative Scholar Book Club members that read through the release of the Spirit, I thought about how she really points out, you know, what she's referring to when she says spirit. I thought that was significant of um, how she defines, what she means when she's talking about spirit. It made me think about the book, The Release of the Spirit. Y'all can drop your comments for this chapter, and I will start sharing them in a minute. While you're typing, I'll go to page 77 where she says, "When I speak of the spiritual, I refer to the recognition within everyone that there is a place of mystery in our lives where forces that are beyond human desire or will alter circumstances and or guide and direct us. I call these forces divine spirit. When we choose to lead a spirit-filled life, we recognize and celebrate the presence of transcendent spirit. Some people will call this presence soul, God, the beloved, higher consciousness, or higher power. Still others say that the force is what it is because it cannot be named. To them, it is simply the spirit moving in us and through us." So when I read that, having my own definition of the Spirit and the Holy Spirit, from my own relationship with God and my faith in Christ, I thought back on what we read in the Release of the Spirit by Watchman Nee, and how Watchman Nee, described um, our innermost man as our spirit being so connected to the Holy Spirit, to the Spirit of God, that it's hard to almost know the difference when our spirit is um able to break through the realm of the soul or the outer man. According to Watchman Nee, looking at that template, the outer man is the soul and the outermost man is the body. So if the outer man is the soul, and which is our mind, our will, and our emotions, when we're able to break through our mind, our will, and our emotions, we're able to operate according to the Spirit of God, which is so joined with our spirit as as human beings that possess a spirit that connect with the Spirit of God, that there's you can hardly tell the difference between the two because we're so operating um, by the direction and the leading of the Holy Spirit. So I thought about that and how, with that understanding, I may differ from someone who I believe it is maybe Rumi, who I am not sure. I don't remember right now what religion Rumi is, but I know one of the quotes that I've heard people use a lot, um, especially like creatives. I've heard some singers use it. Basically, that they believe that when they're singing or they're doing their art or whatever, that it is God in. They say, God in me as me. And so, depending on how you perceive what it is that they're saying, you may feel like, oh no, that's blasphemous. That's not Bible. But if you look at it the way Watchman Nee describes it, that the spirit of God is literally so joined to our spirit when we are indwelled by the Holy Spirit that we operate as one. And so, one person could say that saying God in me as me is the same as that. Although, when it comes to religion, there are certain distinctives that very much make it clear the differentiation between the different belief systems. So I'm not at all trying to confuse anyone's belief system, but just with her giving that definition of spirit and talking about spirituality, I thought it was important to bring that out. All right, so let's share a quote. One of the quotes here is, despite overwhelming pressure to conform to the culture of lovelessness, we still seek to know love. That is a great quote on page 77. That is a great quote. We still seek to know love. Another one on page 76, you all are leaving me, is, we do not become fully human until we give ourselves to each other in love. I have that one highlighted too. I love that quote. And she says, loving Abba and one another is what Messiah summed up why we humans are here. I appreciated that point. For sure. Me too. Both of those two quotes are really good. And you shared this one with me maybe yesterday, I think. Helena, also on page 77, where it says, a commitment to a spiritual life requires us to do more than read a good book or go on a restful retreat. It requires conscious practice, a willingness to unite the way we think with the way we act. All right, I thought that was another good one. But going back really quick to what she was saying about consumerism, um, she said artist Barbara Kruger created a work proclaiming, I shop, therefore I am, to show the way consumerism has taken over mass consciousness, making people think they are what they possess. While the zeal to possess intensifies, so does the sense of spiritual emptiness. Because we are spiritually empty, we try to fill up on consumerism. We may not have enough love, but we can always shop. And I'm like, okay, yeah, 25, 4 years later from the time this was written, still true, if not even more. What is the name of that? Did anyone else watch that documentary on Netflix? I don't remember what it's called, but I watched it maybe a few months, maybe a month or two ago. Basically, it uncovered, you know, just basically how bad consumerism is and how like all of the stuff that we're purchasing is creating so much waste. And it was like showing it all over the world, like how we buy and we consume and we throw away so much, to the point where we can send clothes and shoes and purses and jewelry to every country in the world where that is impoverished, and it is still like way too much. I don't remember exactly what country, but basically it showed like where stuff was taken and like dumped on a beach. It's waste, basically. It's free, like designer gear, like stuff we pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for. It's so much of it that after they run the sales and send them to swap meets or whatever they call them now, and all of those things, they're basically dumped on the beach, um, in other countries, and people know like when the stuff is gonna be dumped there, and they can go and get it. But after a while, it's just like it goes into the mud and the sand. Like it's crazy how much we buy. And whether it's cheap or whether it's expensive, it's crazy how much we buy. But anyway, um, I just like that she make that connection of how we are substituting a lack of spirit in this day and time, a lack of being grounded in true love and what we're truly here for, by being capitalist, by being all about money, by being all about what we can buy. And no matter who we have to hurt, no matter who we have to lie to, no matter who we have to destroy, no matter who we have to scam, as long as we have money to buy all of this stuff that we don't really need, forget the rest of it. I really like that she brought that point out. I think the documentary, The Shopping Conspiracy, it's another one. I think it's called Buy Me or something like that. I haven't seen The Shopping Conspiracy, but I definitely would like to. Um, if I weren't already out of time, I would look up the name of it, but I'll come back and drop it in the chat. The name of the one on Netflix. I'm definitely gonna check out The Shopping Conspiracy. But this one, I think it's called. Someone had told me about it on Facebook because I posted that I was interested in buying I think a Kindle Paperwhite, and I already have a Kindle, so I was kind of like debating, do I need to buy a Paperwhite? I don't need a Paperwhite. I got a regular Kindle that I barely use. I get on the computer or on my phone to read my Kindle books. And someone had typed the name of this documentary in there, but I'll come back and I'll share it with you. But thank you for sharing that one. So yeah, this was actually a shorter chapter. She says on the second to the last page, on page 82, um, she talked about what made her want to speak more openly about spirituality is seeing her students like hopeless. And she said, I began to speak more openly about the place of spirituality in my life when witnessing the despair of my students, their sense of hopelessness, their fears that life is without meaning, their profound loneliness and lovelessness. When young, bright, beautiful students would come to my office and confess their despondency, I felt it was irresponsible to just listen and commiserate with their woes without daring to show how I had confronted similar issues in my life. She also spoke earlier in the chapter about nihilism and how it's becoming more pervasive that people just believe we're here. There is no meaning to life, and how that is taking away obviously from the ethic of love in the world. All right, lastly, on the last page, 83, she says, my belief that God is love, that love is everything, our true destiny, sustains me. I affirm these beliefs through daily meditation and prayer, through contemplation and service, through worship and loving kindness. All right, and I will end with that quote. And I'll also end with a bit of a question and a challenge for all of us, and just a really quick share of my own personal experience. Like, I've noticed that the older I get and the closer I get to God, the more I have like a little quiet inner excitement in myself when I know that I'm coming up on a time where I will like abstain from consuming, whether it's social media, whether it's, certain foods, whether it is, certain conversation, types of conversation. Like the older I get, like the more I know that that is what I need more in my life. But because, there are some traditional set times to do things, there's something exciting about that for me. I'm a person who I will, withdraw from consuming on my own. But there's something exciting to me about when like more people are doing that. There's something exciting to me about, seeing more people talk about, consumerism, seeing more people talking about, the I guess the damage that in all the good that social media can do, some of the damage that it does. Um, you know, there's something exciting about that for me because, I feel like it really connects to the point that she's making in this last chapter. That, we, in all of the busyness and all of the things that we do at the end of the day, it is really our inner man that wants to be fed, that really, fuels what is actually good, what is actually enjoyable in life, beyond just trying to, accomplish, trying to achieve, trying to, have this and have that, trying to, gain the support and the love of this person or that person, really drawing away and feeding our spirits with less consumerism helps us to connect more, as people in love. So, I think that I love that chapter for that. Let's see, page 83, all awakening to love is spiritual awakening. Yeah, I love that quote as well. I have that one highlighted as well. So, just a challenge as we close for tonight, for all of us, what are the ways in which we have been challenged? If anyone wants to share, great. If not, that's fine too. Excuse me. What are some ways that we have been challenged by what we are reading? I believe that a lot of us who are reading this stuff, we're already awakened. We're already hungry in different ways um, to be challenged. Like we're looking for like how can I grow? How can I experience life in a more fulfilling way? Beyond what I have experienced thus far. How can I heal those? How can those broken places be healed so that I can be a vessel that, lives out of a love ethic? So I'd love to know any ways you all have been challenged. If anyone's willing to drop that in the chat, it'll still be there even after we log off for the night. But I think that's important. I give y'all a minute or two to see if anyone wants to comment. And I check over in YouTube real quick so we can close out for the evening. But I just love that it's in the time that we're living in, and with all that we see on the news, to take a few moments out to read and to think, to process, to be honest with ourselves, to pray, to listen to each other's thoughts, and be challenged by even the things that other people are seeing in the book that maybe each of us might miss. I think it's such a valuable thing. So take it I don't take for granted at all that y'all would come and spend this hour or so with me. Helena says that section was touching to me also. She shared about her students. She also says, I have been more intentional to speak my affirmations from page 56. Okay, yeah, I didn't even read any of those. She talked about that she thought affirmations were corny, but then she started to see the value in affirmations, and she started to do them on a more regular basis. And I don't know anyone who excels in different areas of life without having, you know, some words to affirm, whether they're words that are taken directly from the Bible to address certain situations, whether they're paraphrases or whether they are just addressing, the basic human needs that we all have, you know, internally, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I don't know anyone who is successful in making any progress or achievement in life without having some um, core value of spirit to affirm within themselves, where they would speak affirmations. She put I wrote she said, although I had for years been interested in therapeutic modes of healing and self help, affirmations always seemed to me a bit corny. And then she said, I wrote affirmations relevant to my daily life and began to repeat them in the morning as part of my daily meditation. And at the top of her list, she has, I'm breaking with old patterns and moving forward with my life. I not only found them to be a tremendous energy boost, a way to kick off the day by my accentuating the positive, I also found it useful to repeat them during the day if I felt particularly stressed or was falling into the abyss of negative thinking. Affirmations helped restore my emotional equilibrium. So, another thing that we see connected to boosting self esteem. Back to, she said, back in the day, I used to confess tons of scriptural confessions, declarations, I used to call them, for sure. Yep. So whether, declarations, affirmations is something that she, promoted in this book. All right, that's all I have. Thank you for sharing, for the comments. Thank you so much. We're gonna get on and practice how to y'all, we can, those who want to come in and comment but you've never come on as a part of a live on Facebook, and I know different phones and computers are different. um, Now that I know, at least one person who does want to come live and doesn't mind talking, we'll set a time between now and our next book club chat, which is next Thursday, to get on Facebook and give it a shot and see how it works until we get it to work, so everyone will be ready to go. Because I had to figure it out between having the app on this iPhone as well as streaming, like how I can invite you. So we'll get it. But yeah, thank you for being willing to come in. Anyone else who is watching, if you identified yourself and said hello, wonderful. If you did not, that's cool too. But if you have read this book already, I would like your feedback. I would love for you to come on and talk about what you've learned, how you've been challenged, maybe what you disagree with, other book recommendations. I would love for this to be as much of a live chat as possible. I can't wait until we're able to have our closing book chat in person. That's something that we're working on the city and the date for that. Um, I can't wait until we can do that. But until that time, I would love for, those who are watching to see your face as well. So a couple of you, that would be great. And I'll get with you all between now and next Thursday. All right. Thank y'all so much for participating, for jumping in and discussing. Um, I hope you have a wonderful evening. I hope you have a great weekend. And I will see you next week for our live book chat. We'll be discussing chapters 6, 7, and 8. Because we just did 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we'll be discussing chapters 6, 7, and 8 next week, Thursday. And then we will finish up on that next week with the last 4 chapters. So next week, we're reading through chapters 6, 7, and 8, and we're going to discuss, and we're going to have some of you to come on live. All right. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you next week for our book chat in the Creative Scholar Book Club. Have a good night.